Hi, everyone. This is Dorie Clark, and I am here with Newsweek as part of our weekly interview program, Better. I am here with Vivek Tiwary, who is a wonderful Tony-nominated Broadway producer. He is a lead producer of Jagged Little Pill, which until you know what was doing very well on Broadway. Vivek, I'm so glad to have you here.
That's good. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. It's always fun to chat with you.
Thank you. So today we are going to be talking about how to become more resilient in both business and in life. And I think these days, probably no one knows that better than the Broadway community, which aside perhaps from cruise ships, has been devastated more than almost any other industry. I'd also like to take a moment to just welcome the folks who are here and tuning in. And so please go ahead and type into the chat box, say hi, let us know who you are so we can give a shout out to you. We're going to be taking questions from the audience and we'd love to hear yours. So Vivek, the first question that I have, let's start big. What's happening with Broadway? You hopefully you are attending meetings. You know things that perhaps the rest of us don't. When realistically are we coming back, and what do we need to know as members of the broader community who love Broadway, who want to see it come back strong?
The most important thing I can ask you to do is just keep paying attention and keep supporting. We have said that we're coming back in June. My show is Jagged Little Pill, and we are selling tickets from June 1st onwards. But as with everything these days, we are being nimble. That's a word that I want to talk about in this interview. Everybody needs to be nimble. You need to be prepared for changes in the world. We are very hopeful that we will be back over the summer, as we have announced, but we are also preparing for every contingency. One thing I can say with 100% certainty is that we are coming back this year. So what people can do is pay attention, keep supporting, buy tickets, and know that you'll be able to come back to your favorite shows before the year is out. I genuinely believe that. And yes, we are in aggressive conversations. We talk about this stuff daily, if not weekly, about every which way that we can come back as soon as possible, but come back safely. What we don't want to do is things we've seen some of our colleagues do in other parts of the world, where the curtains has risen and then we've come back and it's had to go down again. That's what we don't want to do. We want to assure people that as soon as the curtain rises, we are back for good. And as I said, I guarantee you that that's happening this year, and we are planning for it to happen as early as June.
Well, fingers crossed. We definitely hope that that is the case. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank some of the folks who are tuning in here and are eager to hear your insights, Vivek. We have Rosinda from Mexico, Nelia from Calgary. We have Dr. Mohammed Solomon, our friend from New York and New Jersey, Jeannie from Oregon. We have Al Nociolino. I don't know if you actually know him. He is he's a great Broadway guy who brings many shows to upstate New York. We're glad to have you here. Lisa from Atlanta, Louisa. This is awesome. We're so glad to have everyone here. Yeah, so Vivek, a question that I have for you is, when you first heard that the curtain was going down, it's mid-March and all the shows are going dark. Originally, the plan was a couple of weeks and then Broadway will be back on. What was going through your mind? And in those moments, this is really a show about leadership in business and in life. As a leader, as one of the lead producers, what was going through your head, and how did you think about conveying this news and keeping the team together in receiving this devastating news?
Yeah, so obviously it was a shock. I think that we were woefully underprepared or informed in this country, especially. I don't think we really had the research or the intelligence individually to be able to realize that this wasn't going to be a few weeks. So the first thing that was going through my head was to really try to make sense of it. And that's both emotional in terms of, putting on my armor and steeling myself for some difficult days, but also professionally, doing the research and figuring out, what does this mean? What is this pandemic all about? What has this looked like in other countries? How have other countries that have had outbreaks before we've had dealt with it, both from a country perspective as well as from a business and arts and entertainment perspective? So that's kind of what I did. I sort of got to work in both steeling myself and doing the research. And in terms of communication, one of the things that we have really striven to do with Jagged Little Pill, and something I try to do with all my projects, is just lean into transparency and honesty. Gather the entire cast and company and tell them, like, look, here's what we know, and there's a lot that we don't know. I mean, there are some leaders who believe in, don't say anything until you really know have something to say. And I personally follow the opposite path. I believe it's better to say as much as you possibly can and just admit when you don't know something. And I think especially in these pandemic days, I don't want to put words in my cast and company's mouths, but I believe that they appreciated being able to walk away and saying, like, I heard from my lead producer, and you know what, he doesn't know either. Like, I think that was probably more comforting than being left in the dark. So that's really what we did. We tried to communicate as often as possible. We were emailing regularly, and as soon as we got a grip on new technologies like Zoom and StreamYard, we set up weekly happy hours, we called them, every Friday night for those who wanted to lift a drink and be together. But we also used those as opportunities to share whatever we knew, so that there were weekly gatherings. And we tried to do as much of those kinds of things as possible to keep the utmost of transparency while we were working hard to protect ourselves and to do the research as to what was actually going on in the world. And it became quickly apparent that it wasn't going to be weeks, and we tried and are continuing to try to communicate that as best we can to our cast and company, to say it's not going to be weeks, it's going to be months. Oh, it's not going to be months, it might be a year. And so if you need to take other jobs, fill us in. Let us help you get those other jobs. We care about you as human beings. We want you to be making income. We'll try to get jobs for you. As you probably know, Jagged Little Pill, we did a variety of things. We did a live stream fundraiser for the Actors Fund. We recently did a live concert event with Stellar, a sort of reunion concert of sorts. We did a fundraiser for the Biden-Harris campaign. We've done all sorts of things. And as many times as we could, we found ways to pay our cast and company to appear at those things. Certain things like the fundraiser for the Biden-Harris campaign were volunteer events, but as much as we can, we've also tried to find them work. So that's really what we've been doing, is just working hard, not going into a cave and shutting down, but confronting the situation head on with hard work and honesty.
That's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that, Vivek. If you are enjoying this conversation, please hit the like button and also type in your questions to Vivek. We're going to be taking yours and turning to them momentarily. So let us know what's on your mind. If you're interested in learning more about his work, you can go to Tiwary, ENT, like entertainment.com. And also, of course, you can check out Vivek's show, jaggedlittlepill.com. So, Vivek, a question that came in from one of our viewers, which I think is probably on a lot of people's minds. This person from LinkedIn wants to know, do you envision Broadway shows going hybrid in the next 5 or 10 years? I believe that probably means having live as well as recorded video components in order to maintain revenue and compensate for the lost revenue of COVID. What are your thoughts about recording? I mean, certainly Hamilton on Disney Plus raised a lot of awareness about these things. What is the future of recordings and how that ties in with live theater?
Yeah, I think that that business models are clearly changing, and audiences are changing with what they are comfortable doing. And I believe that things like live stream and live captures. What's most exciting to me about it is I think we are reaching a place now where both audiences and creatives are beginning to think of this not as a stopgap, not as a way, to address your question, not as a way to get revenue when we have been losing revenue, but as really as a new art form, to really embrace the medium as its own medium. And that's honestly where I think Broadway shows are heading. I think it's going to be in the next 5 or 10 years, as the world returns to whatever the new normal is. I think it will be less of a hybrid, meaning like you can watch it online on these days and in this way, and you can watch it in the theater on these days and in this way. Less of that kind of a hybrid, and more sort of as another creative outlet, in the way that a show like Hamilton can have a live stream on Disney Plus, as well as a live show once it returns. Jagged Little Pill, we are planning a variety of those kind of things as well, but less for revenue purposes, and certainly for that as well. I'm a commercial producer. I want to make money, but more to engage creatively, to engage our fans in a number of different creative ways, to have Diablo Cody, our writer, use her creative brain in a lot of different ways. We scripted the concert the live concert that we did with Stellar, and that was, I think, fun for Diablo to use her creative talents as a writer in a medium that she hadn't worked in before. So we are trying to do a lot of those kind of things, and that's what I really see happening in the future. I see both creative and audiences embracing these new technologies and these new mediums for consuming the entertainment that they love, leading to new creative opportunities, so that what you're seeing in your live stream is different. The experience is different from what you're getting on stage, and it's not a replacement. It's a complement.
Yeah, that's great, and I think very hopeful, because the more we can be expanding the audience, the more powerful it is. I think probably much like TED, which ended up not cannibalizing its conference, but growing the base and growing the awareness by making the talks accessible. So that's awesome.
Right. That's right. And it's every show is different, and I do want to say that as well. Hamilton did very successly with its Disney Plus streaming, but not every show is Hamilton. I think it's very clear that Hamilton is became a moment of cultural zeitgeist. And, there were many people who simply couldn't get a ticket to see Hamilton. And so they went and saw it on Disney Plus, and there's still something to seeing it live. And so people will go and see it live. But there are other shows for which, if people, once tourism returns and they come back to New York City and they're there for 3 days and they can only take in one Broadway show, if they've already seen your show on live stream, maybe your show, if you're not Hamilton, isn't going to be the one that they pick. So I do also want to encourage fans out there and fellow producers out there to realize that all shows are different, so you have to do what's best for your show. And really think about that thoughtfully, both as a fan as well as a producer of entertainment.
Yeah, it's a really important point, Vivek. And as someone who personally is a Broadway investor and also writes, like as you do, I'm a member of the BMI Lehman Engel Musical Theater Workshop. These are really important questions to be talking about. So thank you for all this. We had a great question come in from Andrew, who actually himself is a LinkedIn editor, appropriately enough, since so many, unfortunately, Broadway performers are out of work. Andrew writes a great weekly newsletter and articles around the job search process. But he wants to know, do you think that Broadway shows might come back in the spring or summer at outdoor spaces? Is that possibly something that might be happening? What's your thought, Vivek?
Yeah. So, I mean, the short answer to your question, do you see a chance for this, is yes, in the sense that, and when we are talking about these kind of things all the time, you may remember that, when the pandemic first hit and people were brought into lockdown, that drive-ins were making a bit of a resurgence, and that we had a lot of conversations about what we could do at drive-ins. So that is the short answer to your question, is that yes, we are talking about that kind of thing all the time. The longer answer to your question is it is very complicated to put up and stage a Broadway show. When you pick a theater, a venue for your show, there are a lot of considerations: lighting design, where are you going to hang your lights? Geography of stage plot. Some shows require more literal physical stage space than others because they have larger ensembles and bigger dance numbers. There are certain limitations for stage set. You can't just take your stage set and lump it in any venue because it may have been built for the specific theater that you were in. So all of this is a long-winded way of saying that even if it becomes immediately possible to do a show in an outdoor venue, it might logistically not be possible to just take whatever you've got and put it up. And the cost of rejigging your show to make it work in that outdoor venue might also not make financial sense. So I'm getting into kind of the business nitty-gritty of it all. So I guess where I'm going with all that is what you may more likely see is more shows doing, and this goes back to the answer I was just giving about a different creative piece of work. If you can't come back on your Broadway stage, but there's an opportunity to do something in an outdoor venue, maybe it's not the show, but maybe you gather your creative team together. We'll get Diane Paulus and Diablo Cody and Tom Kitt and Sidney Larby, our choreographer, and get them all together and say, what can we do in this outdoor venue? We can't quite do the entire show, let's get Ricardo Hernandez, our set designer, to suggest what he can redesign for this. And let's figure something else out that is a taste of the show. Maybe it's 1 part concert experience, 1 part Broadway show. It's a little bit narrative, but it doesn't give away the whole story, so people will still want to come and see it. What cool creative thing can we do in this outdoor venue that can be really fun for fans and give you that experience of seeing a great outdoor summer concert and a great Broadway show, but not ruin or cannibalize our chances for people who haven't seen the show when we want to come back and deliver the full experience. Like that's more what I think is likely to see happening over the summer if we are not returning in full force inside the Broadway houses.
I think that's a great point, Vivek, because ultimately new situations engender new creative responses. And so it can actually create its own hybrid art form in some ways. So fantastic. On the theme of resilience, which is one of the pieces undergirding our conversation today, Anna had a great question. She wanted to know, oh, no, sorry, we have somebody praising Anna's question. That's very nice. But additionally, Anna's actual question is for you personally, where do you get your inspiration? How do you keep your motivation up? I mean, obviously, as a Broadway producer, this is probably the hardest time in history to be a Broadway producer. How have you been able personally to stay resilient during this time period?
Yeah. So look, for me, I think the most important thing that you can do at any period in your life, but certainly in the past year, is to really take a step back and focus in on identifying and exploiting the things that you love most in your life, the things that you are most passionate about. And that's really has been the key to my resilience, if you will, and that's been really useful. And I like to think that when the world returns or comes back to what I describe will be the new normal, that I'll take some of those habits that I've learned this past year into that new normal. And what I mean about focusing on what you're passionate about, I mean that both personally and professionally. So personally, for example, like I'm really passionate about my family. I love spending time with my wife and kids. So I realized, like, if that's something I'm really passionate about, how can I take advantage of that in the pandemic? And when things were on lockdown, that meant we went for more hikes together and we got out into nature, and that was really lovely. And when things started to open up a little bit and the nearby ice skating rink opened, we picked up ice skating. And shockingly, people were respecting social distance and being masked in that rink. And so I started doing things like that. And professionally, what I love personally as a producer is I love collaborating with musicians, with musical artists. You can see that's pretty obvious if you look at my work. My recent show is Jagged Little Pill with Alanis Morissette. One of my last shows was American Idiot with Green Day. I wrote a graphic novel called The Fifth Beatle that we're adapting for television, and that's working with the Beatles music catalog. So that's what I'm most passionate about, is I love working with celebrity musicians, if you will, my musical heroes. And you know what? Like this past year, many of those musical heroes, you know what they were doing? They were stuck at home. They were more than happy to have a conversation with me about developing a new show. And so, literally last year, I put together a slate of 9 projects. I'm entering 2021 with 9 projects in development that are all tied to what I call high profile music. And that's because I identified that what I love most about what I'm doing is talking to musicians, and musicians have time to talk. So I leaned into that. So I guess, that's a long-winded answer to your question, is I think, like, use this time to identify what you're most passionate about and figure out how, given the parameters of this new world that we live in, you can best do those things that you're most passionate about. And if you're focusing on doing the things you love, you're also taking care of your anxiety. Like it's not my wife is an anxiety researcher, and she'll tell you one of the key things about dealing with anxiety is focusing on the positive. Just don't think about the negative things in your life, focus on the positive things. So what are the positive ramifications of this? Well, I could spend more time with my family, and musicians are easier to get on the phone. So that's kind of, I think, the key to both being resilient and being a good producer in this time. And for shows that are already up and running, I talked a lot about development, but for Jagged Little Pill, what we did is we put our creative brains together and thought about, again, what can we do in this time that we couldn't do before? Okay, so all of a sudden people are comfortable with Zoom technologies. So let's do some live stream events. we started doing that. We put together a paid live stream concert that fans had to buy a ticket for. So it brought some income to my cast and my company who were on it, who needed the money because they were largely unemployed. We also, had a charitable angle to it. So we were also doing good work. And that was, so we found a way to do that. And Jagged Little Pill is a show that also has a lot of social conscience. We are a show that I don't consider it an activist show, but we hope that people will see it and leave inspired to change the world. Whether that's their own little world, and have a difficult conversation with somebody in their life that's struggling with something that they might be able to help with, or if you're struggling with something, going out and seeking help, we hope that's a message of our show. Or maybe it's getting involved in a nonprofit cause that you believe in. We hope that people will do that when they walk out of the theater. That's what we had long hoped when there was a theater to walk out of. So we thought about, okay, well, there's no theater to walk out of with that inspiration. So how can we deliver that in other ways? So, we politically aligned ourselves with the Biden-Harris campaign, and we decided to do a fundraiser for them. That was something we could do, and we found other ways of supporting the various causes that we believed in, and hopefully would inspire, our fans and our extended family to do the same thing. And those were all things that we may not have been able to do had there not been a pandemic. So that's what we did. We focused on what we cared about most, and what new opportunities did this world present to lean into those things that we cared about the most.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so good, Vivek. Great insights. And if you want to learn more about Vivek and his work, his 9 projects that he's cooking up, go to his website right here, tiwaryent.com. If you want to make sure that you never miss one of our weekly interview series for Newsweek, you can actually subscribe to my LinkedIn newsletter, and that will enable you to get reminders about the great guests that are coming through. Just go to dorieclark.com/LinkedIn, hit the subscribe button, and you will be fully briefed on all of this. So a great question came in, Vivek, from Lisa. She was actually curious, given how hard things have been for performers in the past year, what would you tell an aspiring performer right now? What should they be learning or thinking or doing? They're staring into an industry where the job prospects right at the moment are not fantastic. How would you think about this for someone who is intending to break into the industry?
Yeah. So, the main piece of advice that I always give people, which certainly hasn't changed, and I spent the last question talking probably a little too long about it, is focus on what you're passionate about. So that should be general advice for any given moment in time, is for any aspiring performer. What is the type of performance you're most passionate about? What is it? Singing, dancing, acting? What is it that you most want to do with your life? And then I used this word earlier in our conversation, be nimble. And maybe I'm being very dorky and academic and semantic here, but people talk a lot about pivoting, and I'm not talking about pivoting. I'm talking about being nimble. And what that means is finding every way you possibly can to pursue your passion. And that is, if you say if your passion is I want to be on Broadway, okay, we'll hone into that a little bit more. Does it really need to be on Broadway, or is it that you want to be a musical? Is it you want to sing and dance? And if it's that you want to sing and dance, maybe there are ways to accomplish that in this world that we live in right now through a live stream. Maybe it's getting together with a bunch of your friends and putting on your own show, or if you're in lockdown with your brothers and sisters in your basement, and then when the world opens up a little bit, maybe you can write a very creative show that can be performed and done in a socially distanced way, and record that with your buddies in your backyard. So it's about, I guess I'm honing in on figuring out what you love, being nimble in how you pursue that, and doing it yourself. Don't just say, okay, I want to be a Broadway performer. Broadway's closed, so that sucks. So I just need to wait around until Broadway reopens. Instead, figure out what exactly is it that you love, and how can I do that myself? How can I not wait around for somebody to give me a gig, but how can I put the show up on my own? And if you're not a producer or writer or performer, and you're like, I can't just put up a show on my own, find people in your network who are, and collaborate with them, because they're probably feeling the same way you are. They're also probably feeling stilted in what they love doing. So, and then the last piece of advice, which is so cheesy, and I'm sure people have said it a million times, is just don't give up. It is a hard industry, the arts and entertainment industries that we work in. I personally believe it's one of the hardest, but it's also one of the most rewarding and one of the most inspiring. And I genuinely believe that no dream is too impossible and no person too unlikely to realize that dream. But I also believe that, the wilder your dreams are, so to speak, the harder you're going to have to work. So please just push through it and don't give up. Know that you can achieve your dreams, and don't let anyone tell you it's impossible, but just know that you're going to go through tough patches. I mean, I'm very proud that I've been very successful in my company's 21 years old. I'm very proud of that. But I tell you what, every 2 or 3 years we go through a patch where things are hard, and I'm not thrilled about the current state of things in my behind my corporate doors, and I go through that every few years. But I remind myself, like, that's the industry we work in. There are ups and downs, and you push through the hard times, you get through it, and you will get to accomplish those dreams. I really believe that.
Absolutely. I think that's really useful advice. And thank you for that. Last call, folks, for your questions for Vivek. We want to take them. If you've been enjoying this conversation, hit the like button and hit the share button so that your friends and colleagues can benefit from Vivek's insights as well. And a question came in from Dublin, Vivek. Our friend Joseph wants to know, could VR actually be the future of theater? Do you think it's worth exploring or maybe even investing in? What is your perspective on VR?
So you've asked 2 questions here, and the second question, is it worth exploring and or investing in, is absolutely 100%. The first question was, is it the future of theater? And I would say absolutely not. We've talked about this a little bit on this chat already. As I said, I view these new technologies as extensions. It's not the future of theater. It's not that theater is going to be replaced with VR. But one of I think the silver linings from the pandemic is people have been forced to embrace using technology. So VR is just another technology. And what excites me the most is, when can we do something with, let's talk about my current show, Jagged Little Pill, in the VR world that's not a replacement, but that's complementary. And I don't know what that is. Maybe that's going to be a VR show that will explore backstories of the characters. There's an ensemble that's very rich with story, and there are minor characters whose backstories we don't get to see. So maybe we'll do a VR experience for that. Or maybe we can do, it's a Jagged Little Pill is a family story. So maybe we can do a VR experience that allows you to enter Steve's workroom and Frankie's bedroom, where she comes up with her activist posters and defines the things that she's passionate about. And we can explore the various spaces of our characters. So I think VR is absolutely something that's going to be very exciting to explore in the theatrical world. And it's definitely worth investing in. I've been doing a lot of thinking about VR myself, but is it the future of theater? If what you mean by that question is it going to replace theater? There's no chance of it. That's what I believe. But it will be a future of theater. How about that? It will be one of our futures.
That makes a lot of sense. So Vivek, we have time probably for just one more question. One thing that I am curious about, you mentioned earlier, you have 9 different projects that you were working on going into 2021. Obviously, they're a world of possibilities. I'm curious, and I think probably many of our colleagues who are here on the call are as well. How do you pick your projects? What is it that captures your attention? And when you are drilling down and saying, "Okay, I'm going to put my time and energy into moving this forward," which is not easy. How are you actually sifting and selecting where you're putting your energy?
Yeah. So, another thing that I did during the pandemic is that, and this sort of ties into the answer to some of the previous questions, is honing in on what I love the most. Is forced me to sort of really hone in on what it is that I do and what is it that I love doing. And, the dorky academic semantic, you can tell that I'm that kind of guy, that I came up with, is what I do is I collaborate with the music industry and celebrity musicians and composers to transform high-profile music into narrative entertainment. That's what I do. So I work with bands and composers and catalogs and albums that you would have heard of. Personally, I love new artists. I love it when a buddy of mine says, I heard this new band, you got to check them out. I'm the first person to pick up the album or run to Spotify, or when the world was different, go see a show. I love discovering new music. I love new composers for the stage. I love hearing about a new musical that's taking place downtown with a new composer that I've never heard of. I support that work. I don't produce it. That's just not what I do. What I do is I collaborate with Alanis Morissette and Green Day and the various estates of the Beatles. And like, that's what I do and what I'm passionate about in my commercial life, in my professional life. My personal life, I'm all over new stuff. My professional life, I collaborate with well-known music, high-profile music. So that's the first filter, is that I look for those kinds of projects. And as you can tell, I'm a guy that follows my passion. So which high-profile musicians, catalogs, albums am I passionate about? So that's the first thing. And the second part of that is transforming that high-profile music into narrative entertainment. And what does narrative entertainment mean? Well, it means story-driven entertainment. I'm a story guy. I love story. I will never say never, but I don't really do bios. And there have been a number of very good ones. Jersey Boys, beautiful. There's a number of shows that have been produced by my colleagues that again, I love to watch, but it's not what I do professionally. Alanis has spoken very publicly saying that, I was not the first producer that approached her wanting to do something with Jagged Little Pill, but she also has said that I am the first person who approached her and said in the first breath, you've lived an inspiring life, but I don't want to use Jagged to tell your life story. I want to come up with something new and fresh and original and honor the legacy of the album, which is about confronting difficult truths. And let's find an amazing writer to figure out what that story is, somebody like Diablo Cody. That was my take on it. So that's how I operate, is like, I don't lean into pre-existing stories or biographies. I want to come up with something new and fresh. Like, that is what excites me. And the reason narrative entertainment isn't just musical is because musicals have a connotation of the stage. And while I am best known for my Broadway work, certainly, I am developing extensively for television. You'll see a few announcements coming soon regarding Tiwary End projects that are television related. Fifth Beatle is one of them. We've already announced we're doing Fifth Beatle at television, and I have some film things in the works as well. And this year I added live stream producer to my skill set, and something I never thought I would say. So that's why I say narrative entertainment instead of just musical, because that leaves it more open to any medium. So I put that dorky framework around what I do, and then I apply it to finding creative partners that I love. Like, what band and high profile music do I love? And how can I pair that with a writer who can tell a story that I might love? And then that's how I'll pick my projects.
So important to have a clear filter to know what you want to be doing, so you can focus accordingly. That's great. Vivek Tiwary, we are so glad to have you here. If you want to learn more about Vivek and his work, his 9 projects that are happening right now, go to his website, Tiwary, ENT. And also you can, of course, the minute it is back, check out his Broadway show, Jagged Little Pill. If you want to make sure you never miss a Newsweek weekly interview series that we're doing here for the Better Show, go to DorieClark.com. You can subscribe to my email list there. Vivek, thank you so much for having us and being part of this.
I really appreciate it. And I will just say that regarding the 9 projects that are coming, if I can be self-promotional for a moment, we haven't announced most of them. So come to the website and join our mailing list. And in the next few months, we'll be making those announcements. And similar as we have done during the pandemic, there's going to be a lot of interesting things happening for Jagged Little Pill as well. So certainly don't wait around until we're back. You'll see in the next coming months several things that you'll be able to attend or join for Jagged Little Pill. So we've got some interesting things cooking there as well. And whatever it is that you're passionate about, please be resilient and take care of yourself. The last thing I did want to say that I didn't get a chance to earlier is it's okay to take those moments to not be resilient. I think it's okay to go into the back room and break down a little bit, but then just pick yourself up and keep moving forward. There is a light at the end of this tunnel. And thank you for joining us today to talk about it.
Thank you so much, Vivek. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.